Hi gorgeous, it's Emma McCann here. Welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about asana, or your physical yoga practice. And in particular what I want to talk about is how asana is balance. How we really need to approach our physical yoga practice with balance if we're going to practice yoga as yoga is meant to be practiced and without getting injuries. So yoga, the word means union, to yoke, to bring together. And in the West, we tend to just think of yoga as being our physical practice, and we might often think of it as exercise. But traditionally, yoga is a spiritual practice. And in many traditions, there's actually 8 limbs to that spiritual practice. And one of those limbs is the physical pose or physical poses. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of physical poses, and not all traditions will teach those because each of them have developed their own way to work with the body. But essentially, at the very core of what asana is about, it was about learning through the body to still the mind so you could sit in meditation. So if the monkey mind was too busy for someone to be able to maintain a seated meditation, asana was part of the process of that person strengthening the muscle of the mind, strengthening the quiet mind so that they could gain samadhi, enlightenment. But asana also filled another purpose, the purpose of strengthening and balancing the physical body. So if you've ever tried to, for example, sit in meditation cross-legged on the floor and you're not used to sitting like that, it hurts. If you've been on a retreat and you've got to sit like that for quite a while, you know that by the end of that time, it really hurts and your back can be in agony if your back isn't strong, if your postural muscles are struggling. So asana was also developed to support people to be able to strengthen their body, to be able to sit in meditation. So coming at a physical practice of yoga from the point of view that you're going to exercise your body is really missing the point of what it is about. So when I say asana is about balance, what I really mean is that we need to approach our physical practice with balance so that we can take some of that spirituality away and so that we're not getting those injuries. If we're just going gung-ho and not listening to the part of our body that goes, actually, that's a really uncomfortable, or, this side's a lot tighter than the other side and I really can't get into the pose the same, but I'm going to push it. Or that point where your muscles are shaking and you're shaking and you're shaking and you're shaking and you just keep going because you think you've got to push yourself. Sure, in some classes, if you really want to push and, treat your body like a V8 engine and be revving it, that, can have its place. But feeling it and pushing yourself beyond the point of the pose is not achieving anything. You're actually not getting anything. You're not strengthening anything. You are basically activating an accessory muscle. So if you're sitting, for example, in a plank pose, or what in yoga we'll call chaturanga or chaturangasana, and you're holding that for a moment and you're really struggling to hold it and you're starting to shake, you might notice that your shoulders start to be activated, whereas really what you're wanting to strengthen is the triceps, which is why you keep those elbows in nice and tight, not out wide like a normal push-up. And so you're lowering down with your hands in line with your armpits to really get into those triceps, to really strengthen the triceps and to really give you enough room in your sun salutation as you open up into cobra or up dog that you actually can, because your hands are in the right spot. And so we often don't pay attention to those little cues like that set us up to use our body in a more functional way and to really target particular muscles or muscle groups. And that's the whole point of particular poses, is to get into particular body areas. So if you're always going to the most advanced level of a pose, or you're always doing the level that the teacher is doing, and I see it time and time again when I do tree, I've taught multiple classes a week and practiced my own practice through that week as well. So we might sort of at least daily practice, if not more. I'm obviously comfortable doing a level of tree pose that is not the beginner's version that I teach, and I always teach the beginner's version, and I always give people the option to hold onto a wall if balance is tricky for them. But there will be people who can't maintain their balance because they're trying to do the pose to the level that I'm doing. And as soon as I bring my leg down and they bring their leg down, they can stand in it. So they're going into too much of an advanced pose. They can't hold the pose, and then they're not getting the strengthening benefits of, working that standing leg because they can't actually stand in the pose. So you want to find that point where in yoga we talk about the edge, where you can feel the pose, but it's not causing pain. It's really about observing what's happening in the body, being in tune enough, holding your breath enough to be able to witness what's happening in the body, not to always be in fight in every pose. If you're in fight and struggle in every pose, you are not doing yoga. You're really not. And so I want to invite you to back off. If that's what you need to do, it's okay not to be doing it to the level that everybody else is doing. They haven't got your body. They haven't got your mind that day. They haven't been out of bed for the same amount of time as you. They don't have the same job as you. They haven't been sitting in the car for the same length of time as you. They haven't had the same trauma as you that you're holding in the body. They haven't stretched or not stretched the same way as you. The other exercise they do is not the same way as you exercise, or to the same extent. They don't fuel their body or hydrate their body the same way as you. Nothing really about them is the same as you, except that they're human and a spiritual being, and they're at yoga. There'll be little elements, but, in terms of trying to copy someone else on what they're doing, you just haven't got their body, and we're all anatomically different. Some poses are going to be easier or harder because you've got longer arms or shorter arms. You just physically might not be able to get into some poses because of your anatomical structure. So don't beat yourself up. Just find the level of yoga, of asana, that's right for you. If something isn't feeling right, change it. And look for the intention of that pose. Listen to the cues of the teacher. If you're not sure what you're supposed to be feeling in that pose, then go and have a chat afterwards. If you're always feeling tightness in the knee, for example, in Trikonasana, which is another common one, you really need to squeeze those muscles. But you can also bring those legs in from stretched out wide to a little bit closer, and that takes that pressure off the knee. So just making small adjustments and having a great teacher who can support you in that is a really important part of yoga, I think. But sometimes you're not going to get that from your teacher, but being able to, during the class, being able to go and have a chat afterwards, and also being able to look, if there's a particular pose that you're interested in or you want to develop that, you can go to Yoga Journal or any other website with pose instructions and look at what they're saying about that pose and look at where you're supposed to feel it. And if you're feeling it in the right place, then you're on the right path. Okay, so another pose like Trikonasana, we often are collapsing if we've got this, whichever arm it is that's up and reaching for the sky. We really want to be opening across here and drawing this shoulder back behind us and pulling open. But so often we're so focused on how far down this hand goes that this shoulder is coming in. And so we're not getting this opening through here and this real deep stretch up the side of the body because we've collapsed over, because our ego essentially wants to hold our foot. Whereas really where we need to be doing the pose means that we've got our hand somewhere up in our thigh. So think about the intended aim of the posture and try to get that aim. Try to feel the aim of the posture. And then you're not going to be pushing yourself to that same extent of just trying to do the most advanced level of a pose. And sometimes it's really great to revisit the basics of a pose, because in those basics you might find that, I can change my foot position, that makes it a little bit easier, or there might be something that you've missed, or you build your foundation a little bit stronger, or sometimes the easier levels of a pose are actually can be physically harder to hold if your body is weaker in that particular position. And I'm thinking of poses where you're kind of essentially in some type of lunge or warrior type leg, but then the advanced version of that pose is a standing single-legged balance. And I find it much easier to hold a standing single-legged balance than I do to hold a really extended warrior pose or lunge. So, that's another example where not being in balance with the body and not being in balance with your practice will mean you'll always go somewhere because that's easier, but really miss the strengthening opportunities that are available to you within the pose, or the stretching opportunities too. And so being able to come into the level of yoga that's right for you allows you to practice your own yoga within balance.